The sky above New Berlin burned orange and red. Admiral Helena Vasquez stood on the command tower and watched the alien ships descend through the clouds. They moved slowly, like predators who knew their prey could not escape. Each ship was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy a continent. 3 days ago, humanity had celebrated its greatest achievement. The first colony ships had reached Mars. Children were being born on Europa. Humans had finally become a species of the stars. Scientists talked about exploring distant galaxies. Politicians talked about a golden age of peace and discovery. Then the hegemony arrived. They called themselves the Galactic Hegemony. 12 ancient species who had ruled the Milky Way galaxy for millions of years. They had watched humanity crawl out of caves. They had watched humans discover fire, build cities, and split the atom. They had waited patiently as humans took their first steps into space, and then they came to deliver their message. The message was simple. Humanity had 2 choices. The first choice was submission. Human scientists would accept genetic changes that would make the species calm and obedient. Humans would become servants of the hegemony. Like dozens of other species before them, they would live peaceful lives under alien rule. The second choice was extinction. The United Earth Coalition met in emergency session. The debate lasted only 4 hours. Admiral Vasquez remembered the final vote. Every nation, every leader, every representative chose the same answer. Humanity would not kneel. Humanity would not change what it was. Humanity would fight. The hegemony did not seem surprised by this answer. They did not seem angry or disappointed. They simply began killing. The first attacks hit the major cities. New York vanished in a flash of white light. Beijing followed seconds later. London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo. The alien weapons made no sound. They simply erased everything they touched. Buildings, roads, people. All gone in an instant. Admiral Vasquez had been at the Lunar Defense Station when the attack began. She watched Earth burn through a telescope. She counted the flashes of light as city after city disappeared. She tried to send orders to the defense fleet, but there was nothing the fleet could do. Human missiles bounced off alien shields like raindrops off glass. Human lasers did not even leave marks on alien armor. The battle for Earth lasted 6 hours. The battle for Mars lasted 20 minutes. The battle for the Europa colony lasted exactly 1 shot. When it was over, 8 billion humans were dead. The survivors numbered less than 300 million. Most of them were in underground bunkers that had been built in secret years ago. A small group of military officers had always feared this day might come. They had prepared hiding places deep beneath the Earth's surface, places with food, water, and air recycling systems, places that could sustain life for centuries. Admiral Vasquez gathered the survivors in the deepest bunker. It was called Site Zero, located 5 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps. The people who came to her were broken. They had lost everything: families, homes, countries. The entire world they knew was gone. She stood before them in a large cavern that had been carved from solid rock. Emergency lights cast long shadows on the walls. Children cried in their parents' arms. Soldiers stared at nothing with empty eyes. Scientists held tablets showing images of destruction that their minds could not accept. "I will not lie to you," Admiral Vasquez said. Her voice echoed in the cavern. "What happened today was a massacre. We were not defeated in battle. We were slaughtered like animals. The enemy we face has technology we cannot understand. They have ships we cannot damage. They have weapons we cannot stop." The crowd was silent. Some people had tears running down their faces. Others simply looked numb. "But they made a mistake," the Admiral continued. "They think we are dead. Right now their ships are scanning the surface. They are counting bodies. They are confirming their victory. And when they are satisfied that humanity is extinct, they will leave. They will move on to their next conquest. They will forget about us." She paused and looked at the faces around her. Young and old, soldiers and civilians, scientists and farmers, all that remained of the human species. "We are going to let them believe they succeeded. We are going to hide in these bunkers. We are going to build new shelters on moons and asteroids where they will never think to look. We are going to become ghosts." A young officer spoke up. "For how long? How long do we hide?" Admiral Vasquez met his eyes. "For as long as it takes. 100 years. 1,000 years. 1,000,000 years if necessary. We will hide and we will build. We will develop new technologies. We will create new weapons. We will grow stronger in ways they cannot imagine. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. The hegemony rules this galaxy because they have never faced a true challenge. Every species they meet either surrenders or dies quickly. They have forgotten what it means to face an enemy who refuses to give up. They have grown comfortable and lazy and arrogant. Admiral Vasquez pulled out a small device from her pocket. It was a recorder. She pressed a button and spoke clearly. I am Admiral Helena Vasquez of the United Earth Coalition. On this day, I make a vow on behalf of all surviving humans. We will not seek revenge. Revenge is for the weak. We will seek justice. We will wait until we are strong enough to face our enemies as equals. We will wait until we can protect not just ourselves, but every other species the hegemony has crushed. And when that day comes, we will emerge from hiding. We will show the galaxy what humanity has become. She looked at the crowd one final time. They wanted to exterminate us because they feared what we might become. They were right to be afraid. Today, we begin the long silence. Today we start building a future they cannot imagine. One day, our children's children's children will finish what we start. One day, humanity will return. Above them, on the surface, alien ships flew over the ruins of human civilization. They scanned for life signs and found none. The hegemony commanders sent their reports. Earth was cleansed. The human threat was eliminated. The ships departed for their next mission. Deep underground, 300 million humans began to plan. They did not know that their plan would take 500,000 years to complete. They did not know that they would build an armada beyond imagination. They only knew one thing: they would survive. And one day, they would emerge. The long silence had begun. The first century was the hardest. Humans lived like rats beneath the ground. Food was limited. Water had to be recycled again and again. Children grew up without ever seeing the sun. Many people lost hope. Some took their own lives. Others simply stopped eating and faded away. But humanity survived. The underground cities grew slowly. Engineers dug deeper into the earth. They built farms that used artificial light. They created recycling systems that could turn waste into clean water. They developed medical technology that kept people healthy in the dark. Admiral Vasquez died in the 43rd year. She was buried in a small chamber at the heart of Site Zero. Her final words became the motto of the survivors. We hide today so we can emerge tomorrow. Every child learned these words before they learned to read. The Continuity Council was formed to keep humanity focused on its goal. 12 elected leaders served for life. When one died, the others chose a replacement. The council had only one job. They made sure that humanity never forgot why it was hiding. They made sure that every generation understood the mission. In the 2nd century, humans expanded beyond Earth. They built a secret base inside a hollowed asteroid. The asteroid drifted in the outer solar system, far from any place the hegemony might look. From this base, they sent out probes to explore the galaxy. These probes were called Watchers. They were small and fast and completely invisible to hegemony sensors. The Watchers traveled to distant stars. They observed alien civilizations. They recorded everything they saw and sent the information back to the hidden human colonies. The information was disturbing. The hegemony controlled thousands of star systems. They ruled over hundreds of species. Some of these species had been conquered in war. Others had surrendered peacefully. All of them now served the 12 elder races. They mined resources, built ships, and fought in hegemony armies. They had no freedom and no hope. The Watchers also discovered something else. The hegemony had grown weak. After millions of years of easy victories, the elder races had forgotten how to fight. Their ships were old designs that had not been improved in centuries. Their soldiers trained for parades, not battles. Their leaders spent their time on luxury and pleasure, not on preparing for war. This gave humanity hope. In the 5th century, human scientists made their first major breakthrough. They discovered how to fold space. This allowed ships to travel vast distances instantly, but more importantly, it allowed humans to create hidden pockets of space. These pockets existed outside normal reality. They could be accessed only through special gates. They were completely invisible to anyone who did not know exactly where to look. Humanity began building in these hidden pockets. Entire cities were constructed in spaces that should not exist. Factories produced weapons that no other species had ever imagined. Shipyards assembled warships by the thousands. Time passed. Centuries became millennia. Millennia became tens of thousands of years. The humans who lived in the hidden colonies were no longer the same as their ancestors. They had adapted to life in the dark. They had enhanced their bodies with technology. They had modified their minds to process information faster, but they still remembered who they were. They still told stories of Earth under the blue sky. They still taught their children about the massacre that had driven them into hiding. The Continuity Council kept a countdown clock in every human settlement. It showed the estimated time until emergence. The number was calculated by hundreds of computers that analyzed hegemony movements and human readiness. In the early centuries, the countdown showed millions of years. As humanity grew stronger, the number decreased. In the 100,000th year, human scientists made another breakthrough. They learned to capture small black holes and use them as power sources. These singularity cores could provide more energy than 1,000 suns. Ships equipped with these cores could power weapons that could crack planets. Humanity built more ships, and more, and more. The Watchers continued to send reports. The hegemony was expanding again. The elder races had grown bored with their conquered territories. They wanted new worlds to rule, new species to dominate. They were building a massive fleet for a grand invasion of a neighboring galaxy. The Continuity Council studied these reports carefully. They saw an opportunity. If the hegemony gathered all its military power in one place, it would be vulnerable. One decisive strike could end the empire forever. But humanity was not yet ready. The countdown clock still showed 50,000 years. So they waited, and they built, and they improved their weapons and ships and soldiers. In the 300,000th year, humans developed quantum-locked armor. This armor existed in multiple states at once. It could not be destroyed because it was never fully in one place. Ships covered in this armor could survive hits that would vaporize normal matter. In the 400,000th year, humans created dimensional weapons. These weapons fired projectiles that partly existed outside normal space. They could pass through any shield, any armor, any defense. Nothing in the known universe could stop them. The countdown clock kept decreasing. 50,000 years, 20,000, 10,000, 1,000. The Continuity Council began preparing for emergence. They selected Fleet Admiral Chen Wei-lin to lead the attack. She was brilliant and calm and completely dedicated to the mission. She had trained for this moment since childhood. Her family had trained for this moment for 10,000 generations. Admiral Chen Wei-lin walked through the hidden shipyards and saw what humanity had built. Millions of warships waited in dimensional pockets. Each ship was a masterpiece of death. Each one carried weapons that could destroy civilizations. Each one was crewed by humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for this day. 500,000 years, she said quietly to her aide. 500,000 years of hiding, of building, of waiting. My ancestors lit fires in caves. My descendants will light fires across the galaxy. The aide nodded. The Watchers report that the Hegemony Grand Fleet is assembling. They are preparing for their invasion. Admiral Chen Wei-lin smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who has finally cornered her prey. Then it is time, she said. Send the signal to all colonies. Activate all ships. Wake all soldiers from stasis. She paused and looked at the massive warship in front of her. It was called the Remembrance. It was the flagship of the human fleet. It was named for everything humanity had lost. Today, the long silence ends. Tomorrow, the hegemony falls. Across the solar system, in hidden bases and pocket dimensions, millions of humans received the message. Soldiers woke from frozen sleep. Engineers powered up weapons. Pilots climbed into their ships. The countdown clock reached 0. Humanity was ready. High Archon Velthrix stood on the observation deck of his flagship and watched the Grand Fleet assemble. He had lived for 3 million years. He had seen stars born and die. He had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. But he had never seen anything as magnificent as this. 12,000 warships gathered near the edge of the galaxy. Each ship was a kilometer long and covered in golden armor. Each one carried thousands of soldiers from the subject races. Each one flew the banner of the galactic hegemony. Velthrix belonged to the Dominion, the most powerful of the 12 elder species. His kind had ruled the galaxy before most stars had planets. They had achieved immortality long ago. They had mastered technology that seemed like magic to lesser beings. They believed themselves to be gods. It is beautiful, is it not? said a voice behind him. Velthrix turned to see Archon Cirrus of the Celestine. She was ancient even by the standards of the elder races. Her body was more energy than matter now. She floated in the air, glowing softly blue. Beautiful and terrible, Velthrix replied. This fleet will conquer the Andromeda Galaxy. We will rule 2 galaxies instead of 1. Our empire will be truly eternal. Cirrus nodded slowly. I remember the last time we assembled such a fleet. It was to destroy those creatures on that small blue planet. What were they called? Velthrix searched his memory. 3 million years was a long time. Humans, he said finally. They called themselves humans. Aggressive little things. They refused our offer of submission. Ah yes, I remember now. They had such fire in them. Such stubborn pride. Cyrus paused. It is almost a shame we had to destroy them. They left us no choice, Velthrix said. Species that refuse submission must be eliminated. This is the law of the hegemony. This is how we maintain order. Cyrus floated closer to the observation window. Do you ever wonder if any of them survived? Velthrix laughed. It was a cold sound, like ice cracking. Survived? We burned their planet. We destroyed their colonies. We scanned every corner of their system. Nothing larger than bacteria remained. They are as dead as the 1,000 other species who defied us. Of course, Cirrus said, but something in her voice suggested doubt. At that moment, a communications officer approached. He was a Varnak, one of the subject races. His species had been conquered 200,000 years ago. They served as servants and soldiers throughout the hegemony. Hi Archon, the Varnak said, bowing low. We have received a strange transmission. Strange how? Velthrix asked impatiently. It came from an unregistered vessel at the edge of the system. The message was in an ancient language. Our translators could barely process it. Velthrix frowned. Show me. The officer activated a holographic display. A single line of text appeared, written in symbols that looked somehow familiar. You are mobilizing. Where do you intend to go? What species sent this? Velthrix demanded. We do not know, High Archon. The vessel disappeared before we could scan it. Our sensors could not determine its origin or design. Velthrix stared at the message. Something about it troubled him. Something about the language tickled the edge of his ancient memory. But he pushed the feeling aside. It is nothing, he declared. A ghost transmission from some failed probe. Delete it, and continue preparations for departure. Yes, High Archon. The officer left. Cirrus floated silently, saying nothing. Across the hegemony, the subject races watched the Grand Fleet with mixed feelings. For many, this was simply another chapter in their long servitude. They would fight and die for masters who viewed them as tools. This was the way things had always been, but some of them whispered in secret. They passed down stories of species who had resisted the hegemony, stories of worlds that had chosen death over submission. They did not know why they kept these stories alive. They only knew that they must. On the hegemony's throne world, the remaining elder races celebrated. They held feasts that lasted for weeks. They congratulated themselves on their eternal dominance. They looked forward to the new territories that the Grand Fleet would conquer. None of them noticed the small objects that drifted through their systems. These objects looked like space debris. They looked like asteroids and comets and random chunks of rock. But they were watching. They had been watching for thousands of years. The watchers recorded everything. They noted the positions of every ship. They analyzed every weapon system. They identified every weakness in the hegemony's defenses, and they sent this information back to the hidden human colonies in coded bursts that no hegemony sensor could detect. Fleet Admiral Chen Wei-Lin received the final report in her command center beneath Titan's frozen surface. She read the data carefully. The hegemony's entire military was gathering in one location. Every significant warship in the galaxy would be there. They are doing exactly what we hoped, she said to her staff. They are putting all their eggs in one basket. General Marcus Torres, her second in command, nodded grimly. Our ancestors could not have imagined this moment. 500,000 years of preparation, and it comes down to one battle. Not a battle, Admiral Chen corrected him. Battles can be lost. This will be an execution. She stood and addressed her commanders. There were 50 of them, representing every division of the human fleet. They had trained together for decades. They trusted each other completely. In 6 hours, the hegemony Grand Fleet will reach its assembly point. In 7 hours, we will emerge from hiding. The enemy will not know what hit them. They will not have time to understand what is happening. They will simply die. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Our ancestors made a vow. They promised that humanity would return. They promised that we would seek justice for all the species the hegemony has crushed. Today, we fulfill that vow. Today, we end 500,000 years of silence. Today, the galaxy will learn that humanity survived. The commanders stood at attention. Some had tears in their eyes. They had been raised on stories of the massacre. They had grown up knowing that they were the children of survivors. This moment was everything their people had worked toward. To your ships, Admiral Chen ordered. Prepare for emergence. In hidden pockets of space throughout the Sol system, human warships powered up. Their engines hummed with the energy of captured stars. Their weapons armed with projectiles that could pierce reality itself. Their crews, some of whom had waited in frozen sleep for millennia, took their positions. The long silence was about to end, and the hegemony would learn the true meaning of fear. The hegemony Grand Fleet floated in perfect formation near the edge of the galaxy. 12,000 warships arranged in precise geometric patterns. They were waiting for the final command to begin their journey to Andromeda. High Archon Velthrix stood on his command deck, satisfied with what he saw. This was the greatest military force ever assembled. Nothing could challenge it. Nothing could stop it. Then space itself began to break. The first tier appeared directly in front of the flagship. It was a wound in reality, a crack in the universe that should not exist. Through the crack, Velthrix saw something that made no sense. He saw darkness that moved. He saw shapes that devoured light. What is happening? He demanded. Before anyone could answer, ships began pouring through the tier. They came by the hundreds, by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. More tiers appeared throughout the hegemony formation. Reality ripped open in a dozen places, in 100 places, in 1,000 places. And from each tier came more ships. The human fleet emerged into normal space like a plague. They spread across the darkness in numbers that defied comprehension. 1 million ships, 2 million, 3 million. Each one was black as night. Each one was angular and brutal and designed for only one purpose. Velthrix stared at the impossible sight. His ancient mind struggled to process what his eyes were telling him. In 3 million years, he had never seen anything like this. "Shields up," he screamed. "All ships, open fire." The hegemony fleet responded with trained precision. 12,000 ships targeted the emerging enemy. Energy beams and missiles and plasma cannons filled space with deadly light. None of it mattered. Human ships did not dodge the incoming fire. They did not need to. Their quantum-locked armor existed in multiple states at once. The hegemony weapons passed through them without causing damage. Explosions bloomed harmlessly against hulls that were not entirely real. Then the humans returned fire. The first human projectile hit a hegemony battleship in the center of its formation. The projectile was small, no bigger than a fist. But it existed partly outside normal space. It passed through the battleship's shields as if they were not there. It passed through the armor. It passed through the hull. Then it exploded. The battleship vanished. Not in a blast of flame and debris. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next moment, there was empty space. More projectiles followed. Thousands of them. Millions of them. The hegemony fleet began to die. Ships that had been built to last millennia were erased in seconds. Crews that had never known defeat had no time to understand what was killing them. The golden warships of the elder races shattered like glass hit by stones. On the flagship, Velthrix watched his fleet disintegrate. Warning alarms screamed. Officers shouted damage reports. Screens showed ship after ship blinking out of existence. "This is impossible," he whispered. "This cannot be happening." A transmission cut through the chaos. It appeared on every screen in the hegemony fleet. A human face looked out at them. A woman with calm eyes and iron-gray hair. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations. "I am Fleet Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the Human Remnant," she said. Her voice was clear and steady. "You thought you destroyed humanity 500,000 years ago. You were wrong." Velthrix stared at the face on his screen. Humans. The species he had helped exterminate 500,000 years ago. The species he had forgotten completely until a few days ago. They had returned. "We have watched you for 500 millennia," Admiral Chen continued. We have studied your ships, your weapons, your tactics. We know everything about you, and we have built weapons you cannot imagine. Another section of the hegemony fleet vanished. Then another. Your empire was built on genocide. You killed billions of my ancestors. You crushed hundreds of other species. You ruled through fear and murder. Today, that ends. Velthrix finally found his voice. Impossible. We scanned your system. We confirmed your extinction. Nothing survived. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was almost sad. You found what we wanted you to find. You saw what we wanted you to see. You believed what we wanted you to believe. That is the power of patience. That is the power of hate transformed into purpose. The flagship shook as something impacted its hull. Warning lights flashed red across the command deck. Your shields cannot stop us, Admiral Chen said. Your armor cannot protect you. Your weapons cannot harm us. You have 3 million years of technology, and it means nothing. Because you stopped growing, you stopped learning, you stopped adapting. We never stopped. Another impact. The lights flickered. Today, the galactic hegemony dies. But I want you to know something before the end. We are not doing this for revenge. Revenge is wasteful. We are doing this for justice. For every species you murdered, for every world you burned, for every civilization you destroyed because they refused to kneel. Velthrix felt something he had not experienced in millions of years. Fear. True. Primal fear. That came from knowing you were about to die. The human fleet will occupy your throne worlds by tomorrow, Admiral Chen said. Your subject races will be freed by the end of the week, and your elder species will face judgment for what you have done. This is not the end of civilization. It is just the end of yours. The transmission ended. Around the flagship, the last hegemony ships were being destroyed. The battle had lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes to destroy a fleet that had taken centuries to build. 4 minutes to end an empire that had lasted millions of years. Velthrix stood alone on his command deck. His officers were dead or fleeing. His ship was breaking apart. Through a crack in the hull, he could see human ships gliding past like predators surveying their kill. He thought about the massacre 500,000 years ago. He remembered how easy it had been, how quickly humanity had fallen, how certain he had been that they were extinct. We should have made sure, he whispered to no one. A human projectile passed through his flagship. Velthrix had 3 million years of memories. He had witnessed the birth of civilizations and the death of stars. He had believed himself immortal. In his final moment, he understood that even gods could be wrong. The flagship vanished. Fleet Admiral Chen Weilin watched the last hegemony ship disappear from her tactical display. The Grand Fleet was gone. 12,000 warships destroyed without a single human casualty. The largest military force in galactic history had been erased in less time than it took to drink a cup of tea. She felt no joy, no triumph, only a strange emptiness. Admiral, General Torres said quietly. It is done. She nodded slowly. Send the signal to all fleet divisions. Begin Phase 2. Occupy all hegemony core worlds. Free all subject races. Let no one resist, and let no one escape. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, her ancestors were watching. The ones who had huddled in bunkers beneath a burning earth. The ones who had made a vow that their descendants would fulfill. We have returned, she said softly, and the galaxy will never be the same. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. The hegemony Grand Fleet was gone, destroyed in minutes by a species that should have been extinct. The elder races who had ruled for millions of years were suddenly helpless. On thousands of worlds, subject races looked up at the sky and saw human ships arriving. The ships did not fire. They did not attack. They simply appeared and waited. On the planet Varna Prime, a young soldier named Crix watched the black ships descend through the clouds. He had served the hegemony all his life. His father had served them. His grandfather had served them. His ancestors had been conquered 200,000 years ago. What do we do? Asked another soldier beside him. Crix did not know. He had trained to fight for the hegemony. He had never imagined fighting against anyone else. A human ship landed in the central square. A door opened and a single human walked out. She was small compared to the Varnak. She wore simple gray clothes and carried no visible weapons. She walked toward the gathered soldiers as if she were taking a peaceful morning stroll. "I am Commander Sarah Okonkwo of the Human Remnant," she announced. Her voice was amplified by some hidden technology. "The galactic hegemony no longer exists. You are free." The soldiers stared at her in confusion. Free. The word had no meaning to them. Their people had been slaves for thousands of generations. Freedom was a concept from ancient stories, not reality. "What do you want from us?" Crix asked carefully. Commander Okonkwo smiled. "Nothing. We want nothing from you. Your world belongs to your people now. You can govern yourselves however you choose. We will provide food and medicine and technology to help you rebuild. But we will not rule you. We will not command you. You are not our subjects." Crix felt something strange in his chest. Something he could not name. Later, he would recognize it as hope. This scene repeated across the galaxy. On world after world, human ships arrived with the same message. The hegemony was gone. The subject races were free. A new era was beginning. On Throne Prime, the capital world of the elder races, the situation was different. The remaining Archons gathered in their ancient council chamber. Once, this room had held the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Now, it held frightened survivors. Only 3 of the original 12 elder species had leaders remaining. The others had died with the Grand Fleet or fled to unknown corners of the galaxy. The 3 who remained were Cirrus of the Celestine, Archon Mordith of the Pale Ones, and Archon Grenth of the Iron Masters. They waited in silence as human soldiers escorted Fleet Admiral Chen Wei-Lin into the chamber. She walked slowly, taking in the ancient architecture. Carvings on the walls showed the conquest of countless worlds. Statues depicted elder race heroes crushing their enemies beneath their feet. Admiral Chen stopped in the center of the room and looked at the 3 surviving Archons. "500,000 years ago, you gave my ancestors a choice," she said. "Submit or die. They chose a third option that you did not offer. They chose to survive in the shadows. They chose to wait." Archon Cirrus floated forward. Her body flickered with unstable energy. "What do you want from us?" "Surrender. We surrender. Take our worlds. Take our technology. Take everything. Just let us live." Admiral Chen shook her head slowly. "You misunderstand. We do not want what you have. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. Your worlds are irrelevant to us. We do not need anything from you." "Then what?" Mordith demanded. His voice cracked with fear. "Justice," Admiral Chen replied simply. She pulled out a small device and projected a holographic document into the air. It showed a list of terms. "These are the conditions of the new order. First, the hegemony is dissolved forever. Your species may keep your home worlds. Nothing more. Your empires end today." The Archon said nothing. "Second, all subject races are immediately freed. They will govern themselves. If they request human protection, they will receive it. If they wish to be left alone, they will be left alone." Admiral Chen paused before continuing. "Third, a new galactic concord will be established. Every species will have equal representation. Every world will have equal rights. No one will dominate others. And fourth," Cirrus asked quietly, "fourth, your species will face a tribunal for crimes against civilization. Every genocide, every massacre, every species you destroyed will be accounted for. This is not negotiable." Archon Grenth stepped forward angrily. "You dare judge us? We ruled this galaxy for millions of years. We brought order to chaos. We elevated primitive species to civilization." Admiral Chen looked at him with cold eyes. "You burned my ancestors alive. You erased cities from existence. You killed 8 billion humans because we refused to become your slaves. Do not speak to me of civilization." "Ender." The room fell silent. Admiral Chen turned to leave, then stopped. "You asked earlier what we want. I will tell you. We want what every species wants. Safety, freedom, a future where our children do not have to hide in darkness. We spent 500,000 years building the power to achieve this. Now we will use that power to create something better than what came before." She looked at the ancient carvings on the walls. "Your empire was built on fear and death. Ours will be built on choice and justice. That is the difference between us." 3 months later, Fleet Admiral Chen Wei-Lin stood in a plaza on the rebuilt Earth. The planet had been terraformed back to beauty during the long silence. Blue oceans sparkled under yellow sun. Green forests covered the continents. Cities rose where cities had once stood. 500,000 years ago. In the center of the plaza stood a memorial. It was a simple black wall that stretched for kilometers. On its surface were carved the names of every human who had died in the original massacre. 8 billion names. It took 3 days to walk from one end to the other. Young people came to the memorial every day. They touched the names of ancestors they had never known. They read the stories of the massacre that their families had passed down for thousands of generations. They understood, in a way that no other species could understand, the weight of what humanity had survived. A young officer approached Admiral Chen as she stood before the wall. "Admiral, the Galactic Concord has officially formed. Representatives from 3,000 species have signed the charter. The elder races have agreed to stand trial." Admiral Chen nodded but did not turn away from the names. "Admiral, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think they understand?" "The other species, the elder races, everyone. Do they understand what we went through?" Admiral Chen was silent for a long moment. She thought about the bunkers beneath the earth. She thought about the children who had grown up without ever seeing the sky. She thought about the generations who had lived and died in hiding, working toward a day they would never see. "No," she said finally, "and I hope they never have to. That is why we emerged. Not to make others suffer what we suffered, but to make sure no one ever has to make the choice we made, to hide or to die, to wait in darkness or to be destroyed." She placed her hand on the cold stone of the memorial. "We were patient because we had no other option. We became powerful because it was necessary. And now we will be merciful because that is who we choose to be. Our ancestors would not want us to become what we fought against." She turned away from the wall and looked up at the sky. Human ships orbited above Earth, as they had for 3 months, not as a threat, as a promise. "We will protect this galaxy. We will help every species find their own path. We will never forget what was done to us, but we will not let it define us. That is the legacy of the long silence. That is what 500,000 years of waiting taught us." The young officer nodded slowly. "What do we do now, Admiral?" Chen Weilin smiled. It was a real smile this time, warm and hopeful. "Now we live. Not in bunkers, not in hiding, not in fear. We build, we explore, we grow, we help others do the same. That is what humans do. That is what we have always done." She began walking toward the edge of the plaza, where a shuttle waited to take her back to her flagship. "The long silence is over," she said. "The future has begun." Above Earth, the human fleet hung in orbit, silent, watchful, patient. They had waited 500,000 years for this moment. They could wait a little longer to see what came next. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget.